After playing Champions Meeting for the past couple of days, you have probably encountered Uma Musumes that look something like these. Oh! Yeah, I don't know about that one. Yeah, nah, she's done. Oh my god. Oh. Okay, that looks pretty trash. Oh my god. Okay, this goal shape is a little bit dented though. As the front is completely... Yeah, this angle is not gonna be cooking. Oh, check, this skill are completely useless, by the way. Please don't get this skill. Oh my... Okay, he has no power. I thought to myself, why are there so many of these Umas one hoof into the glue factory in a graded league no less? Because clearly the amount of information we have in the community is not the problem, because Uma Musume has been a game out for 4 years. Everything related to the game is pretty much out there. Is there any way we can cook up a content that can reduce the number of glue Umas or glumas? What is the main underlying issue causing the enormous learning curve within Uma Musume itself? And then I realized, it isn't because we do not have enough information, it isn't because people do not have interest in the game, and it isn't even the jobbers who just got off a 12-hour shift to play their only CM race before they put the kids to bed and get back to bed before work tomorrow, only to be cooked by some random Uma streamer playing 7 hours a day. The biggest issue is simply this: you don't know what you don't know. So far, a lot of Uma Musume content has an information overload for most casuals and new players, trying to help them understand the different aspects of our massive Uma Musume iceberg, but failed to account for one of the most important and fundamental principles when it comes to any basic consumer demand, and that is, if players do not even know what they're doing wrong, how would the information even help them in the first place? No amount of advice, guides, theory crafting can help someone if they are like a lost ship out at sea without a compass to guide them towards the destination they seek. It's like hearing orders from a captain saying you must pull Kira-san Black, but you don't even know how to get past 600 stamina with good speed. Luckily, that ends today. After clocking about 500 hours in the past 2 months, I have seen the differences between Torenas and their Umas, ironically not between their decks, because I've seen proper 12-8-8 stat lines with great skills while on pretty much SR cards and 0 limit break killers and blacks. Of course, you can definitely help elevate this guy with the power of money, slam MLB SSRs, which will definitely get you a much better stat line, but the purpose of this video is not me telling you to solve your problems by swiping. Rather, I want to show all of the common mistakes you have likely made and will probably keep making going forward unless you change the way you're playing the game. The biggest issue most casuals probably have is that they do not know how to do URA careers. Simply take a look at your ratings. Ratings, as we know by now, essentially reflect your base stats and skills your Umas will have at any given career run. And no, I don't mean the inflated A+ ratings with speed and wits and having 300 stamina. I mean real proper ratings with the goal of hitting at least 1200 speed and 800 stamina. Now, this might sound a little bit unrealistic, but if you are not getting a bare minimum A rating and you have been playing Uma Musume for a while, then I'm almost positive you have been doing something wrong. Having a good rating doesn't mean you're doing everything right, but having a bad rating definitely means you are doing something wrong. I also do want to stress on extremely hard that for this current Taurus Cup we're facing on the 2400 CM, it is technically a lot easier compared to the next upcoming Gemini Cup, which is going to be a 3200 meter long race, which means that your stat requirements are going to be way higher. If you think that currently facing on Taurus Cup with like 600 stamina, 500 stamina, or even 400 stamina with barely enough Steve is going to be, a little bit laughable, wait until you get into Gemini Cup, and if you do not have at least, I would say, bare minimum 1000 to 1100 stamina with at least 2 to 3 goal recovery skills, there is almost no way you're even going to be completing the race, and you might even lag behind slower than Haru Urara with enough stamina. So for this segment, I will be playing this random run of a McQueen, running with full SR cards, the free special weight card, as well as a borrowed MLB Killer-san Black, while hitting A+ rating at the very end, despite having things going terribly wrong in the middle of our runs. Now, I definitely know A+ is not going to be for the average player base, but you do not want to be average. No, you want to be better, faster, stronger, rise up above the crowd of mediocrity, and seize victory with this video from UmaPokke as you finally walk out from the B+ Joe. Now, jokes aside, A+ is not going to be something you're getting every single run, but getting your decision making within your URA career honed in to secure at least A rank consistently for at least, I would say, 80% of your careers is a very good starting point and would give you a massive advantage over the other Torenas. If you are keen, I will also release a full footage of me step by step explaining my thought process in URA for a more hands-on approach, so do subscribe, like, and leave a comment to support our humble little UmaPokke channel. Now, jumping into the actual mistakes here, I've never narrow down to the top 10 most common and major mistakes you are most likely making in your runs, as well as how to fix them within this segment. If you have any additional tips as well for the player base, feel free to drop them down in the comments below. And the first of which is going to be not looking at your passive stat gain, which is gonna be the base stats you're gonna be getting from any Uma Musume. For example, you're getting 20% speed and 10% power with Ogre, or you're getting 20% stamina and 10% power on Ghost Ship. This is a huge variation which will determine your deck building, because you don't really want to care about the skills that much, especially if you're a casual player base, because generally speaking, out of all of the examples I've seen so far, base stats are what a lot of players are lacking. Otherwise, you're probably not going to be watching this video in the first place, right? So looking at the passive stat gain, this will literally construct your final deck itself. So for example, if you're already having an Uma with 20% built-in stat bonus, such as for example Ogre Cap, there is almost no incentive for you to run a 4-speed 2-stamina deck for the upcoming CM, because you should still very likely hit the 1200 speed benchmark, while on the other hand, focusing on the weaknesses that Ogre may have, which is a 0% on stamina, which means that a 3+3 deck for Ogre is going to give you a much better stat distribution. On the contrary, if you're going to be using, for example, somebody like Ghost Ship, 20% stamina and 10% power, which means it's going to be relatively difficult to bring Ghost Ship speed all the way up, which means at that point, you're probably going to be more inclined to run the 4-speed 2-stamina attack. I cannot stress enough how important it is to at least look at this passive stat lines, because a lot of times you might get into a scenario where you overtrain on speed or you overtrain on stamina, even though most players will probably be running into the overspeed portion. But looking at this base decks will definitely help you a lot when it comes to building the right deck for your Uma Musume. And jumping into the second mistake, and that is gonna be your friendship gauge management. You want to aim for an even spread of friendship across all 6 support cards, with not one card being overly high, especially in the junior year. Single early rainbows are a massive beginner bait to waste your turns and energy, when you should still prioritize friendship as much as possible. This is because rainbows can stack on with one another, which is why you see 2+, 3+, or even 4 rainbows have far more value than a single rainbow. So your goal is to hit the orange friendship for every single card, ideally before the classic summer, which is going to be your late June period, which will give you the highest foundation when you go into your classic as well as senior year, where a lot more stats are going to be coming in. My personal preference is that any sort of the stat line in the junior year, as long as they are 4 or above, that's going to be your priority, followed by 3+ in width, followed by 3+ in any other stat, followed by 2+ in width, and if there's really nothing else in 2+ in width, then you can just go for the mood or rest. And then generally speaking, I also want to prioritize speed or stamina over width, over power, over guts. And generally, I will almost never want to train on guts unless guts have a 4+ in their stat line, because guts consume quite a lot more energy compared to the speed as well as stamina being the lowest. And energy management is gonna be our next topic right now, and that's gonna be the third beginner mistake. This honestly can be run ending, because poor energy management can snowball very drastically, and you're probably making a lot of these bad habits going into the run itself. Remember, you really want to account for support card as well as random event stamina, just like your mood. So ideally, you want to make it to a scenario where in your current turn, you want to look forward ahead by 2 or even 3 more turns later to get the best bang for your buck within the energy you're going to be spending. You ideally only use wit as a friendship upgrade, and never ever use wit to replace rest if you ever need energy. Also, always take a gamble for all of the full events, which will give you 30 energy unless you're absolutely maxed out, because even if you do get hit by slow metabolism, the effect can actually wear off by itself after a while. So if you're going to be hitting a lot more for racers or going for stamina, you could just risk it, and best scenario, you just don't even get it in the first place, right? And jumping into the next segment, which is going to be a very similar point, and that is mood management. Generally speaking, doing rare creation early on is not something that I prefer, because URA scenario as well as Kira-san Black, which I'm assuming everybody's probably running, will give a lot of free mood events. So I personally like to just rely on those and essentially get a free turn once they actually do show up, right? Early grade moods also don't affect your level 1 training facilities as much compared to classic and senior year when they actually level up your training facilities. So I only ever do rare creation from classic onwards, or if there are really no good friendship training in junior. Remember, between your 3 years, junior is where you prioritize solely on friendship, classic is where you start to go a little bit more into your speed and stamina, and senior year is where you can start slamming a little bit more G1s for your skill points, or just go even more into the stat distribution. And going into our 5th mistake, and this is going to be risk management, which is a little bit similar to your energy management. Generally, my personal rule of thumb is I would take a risk at roughly 10% if you have a good amount of friendship, or if you see a lot of rainbows. I almost never risk anything above a 20%. If you do fail a sub 20% and get this event called Get Well Soon in the infirmary, always go for the second option to try and get practice perfect and save yourself a mood down. Even if you do get practice poor, which is is when the event fails, it is a very minor effect and is often worth the trade-off. However, on the flip side, which is probably not going to happen unless you're training with a very high risk of failure, and get this event called don't overdo it, always pick the first option, but this should almost never happen because it can be career ending because it drops a lot of stats as well as mood. Yes, triple rainbow with 30% failure is almost never worth it. Just get used to it because a single incident, like I mentioned, can be career ending, right? Don't see all of the favorite YouTubers gambling all the kind of stuff, please. Oh my fuck! Over time, this should set up the foundation for you training in Uma Musume. And the sixth common mistake, and this is honestly very big as well, which is gonna be not preparing for your summer. And I'm not sure how many Uma trainers actually do this. I always rest 2 turns in advance, i.e. in early June. So in case if our first rest is very bad because you get a 30 energy and you get hit with a night owl, you can still cure it on the second turn. Tazuna's skill is also very nice over here. So if you do want to use that card, feel free to go for it. If you do get well rested with max energy and you're gonna be at a late June at this point, you can either choose for the wit training or you can just go for a race itself, which is gonna be usually the G1 for more skill points. During summer, you always want to aim for at least 3 trainings, ideally 4, when 3 of those are gonna be either your speed or stamina, especially with rainbow. The 4th training is either gonna be wit or you just really want to go for the rest, as well as getting the mood up itself over here. If your summer did not get rainbows, is actually completely fine because the aim is to get used to this mindset going into summer, and also the raws that you're getting from a level 5 training facilities in summer is still gonna be a lot more valuable compared to your normal training, especially in classic year when your training facilities are very low level. Summer is also where you want to bring up your lagging stats, so prioritize your rainbow stamina over your rainbow speed because you should be hitting speed training way more frequently to aim for the 1200 speed as a baseline. Now I do want to mention that the next cup, which is going to be Gemini Cup going for the 3200 meter race, you are probably not going to be that serious for speed because stamina is actually way more important, but just for that particular CM. Now moving on into our 7th mistake, and that is gonna be not knowing when to race. You really only want to hit the G1s and ignore pretty much everything else. And I'm sure you guys have seen this video, an excellent video by the JP guy, which is a very good reference to basically cover every single possible race with no overlap to get max compatibility as well as skill points. But this is mainly for sparks farming. When you're doing your ace run, which is where you really want to get good stats, which means you're gonna be getting a good rating, you can generally do probably half of these and aim for better stats, especially if you're a new player or a casual struggling with your stat itself, right? Remember, skills really do not matter at all if your Uma Musume is getting like 900 speed with like 500 stamina. It literally will just die mid-game, so always prioritize stats over everything else within Uma Musume. If, however, you can consistently hit a 1200 speed, 800 stamina, 800 power, or if you're going to be going for the next CM, which is 1200 speed and roughly 1000 or 1100 stamina, then you can go for races as you see fit, right? You want to try to start off with the senior double triple crown over here, which is going to be those 6 races as shown over here, and use a classic year to build your stats as well as the foundation. If you are even better and you know for a goddamn fact that you can actually clear every single one of these races with no issue on the skill points as well as your stats, then you can just go for the classic races as well. A couple of side notes, for your ace Umas, sometimes you actually have to forsake the race if you see a 2+ rainbows, especially if that stack has been very lacking. So for example, my personal baseline is to hit 800, 600 on speed, stamina, power by the end of classic year, and 1100, 700 and 700 by the end of senior year, all going into your URA last 3 rounds. If your stats are not at this caliber, just go for trainings, especially if you see 2+ rainbows within the training itself, right? This is very important because, like I mentioned, stats over skills, stats over skills. Second thing, fan checks for this entire URA scenario is generally very easy to hit, especially if you have not lost repeatedly in the classic year, so don't really worry about it too much. Remember to hit the green director, which is going to be a level 3 friendship for the unique outbreak by the senior early April. And now, speaking about skills, we're going to jump into our 8th mistake, which is when exactly do you level your skills or use your skill points within the career itself. In 90% of your ace scenario, assuming you hit our stat lines and following our guide or fixing the mistakes for the past 7 different mistakes, URA G1s and career races are pretty easy to win, and you pretty much never ever need any of these skills. As such, always give front runner, right? This will prevent yourself getting boxed in and running out of stamina, which are the biggest race killers. Now, do note that some Uma uniques want them to be in a little position, such as Gold Ship as well as Major Orion, so do at least read their skills. This only affects your wit, and since your positioning is not going to be having any skills at all, because you can pretty much outstat and win almost every single one of the URA scenario, there's going to be no issue whatsoever. The only time you want to consider adding skill is if you want to attempt Kikuga Show as well as Tenno Show in Classic as well as Senior. And these are the very high stamina consumption races, especially if you have any of these races as a top 3 or even top 1 career. For example, Major McQueen getting rank 1 in Tenno Show, right? If you do not have stamina, getting blue skills here for these long races would help a lot. Other than that, your speed stat line should help you for almost every single race. I personally try to stall getting skills as much as I can in order to gamble for more hints that you can be getting from any of your random race events, inheritance, or if you're going to be getting a fast learner, which will save you a ridiculous amount of skill points as well. Now, moving on into our 9th mistake, and that is going to be learning the events of your support card as well as your Uma. Now, this honestly comes with time, but using this tool over here can help you a lot. But I would admit it is a pretty big pain in the ass, especially if you're going to be playing on mobile. So it's best to get used to it because you're basically trying to ride a bicycle and it will come with experience. Making the right event decisions would make a massive difference between each run once we have done everything before up to the mistake number 9. So please go ahead and get used to this a little bit more, or use this website. And the last final mistake, and I think this is pretty much the one that will probably cover almost a lot of player base, especially in the middle run, which is you give up way too easily, right? Don't ever give up in a career run, because once you give up, so for example, you have a bad training, right? You went sick, or for whatever reason you lost too many races, you will say, okay, you know what, this run's done, I'm just gonna train, just go for a random spark run, glue run, or field run. But keep in mind, especially for casuals, every single run is 30 TP. You simply run your career again and again and again and again and again. And since you probably did not bring your Spark deck in the first place, you are not really gonna be getting that much skills anyways. So if you are gonna be going into a URA's training career, this is your chance to learn the Uma and support card events related to my previous point once again. Also, a miracle can happen at any point of time during Uma Musume, because Uma Musume is a probability game, right? So for example, all of a sudden you get hit with a Night Owl, you feel 3G1 straight, you are losing everything, but then the next moment you get a Quadra Rainbow and instantly get like 100 speed, right? Anything can be possible, so never ever give up in a run, because when you play this run all the way towards the end, it would help increase your experience as well as proficiency within Uma Musume.
諦めんだよ。諦めんなお前。どうしてそこでやめるんだ。そこでもう少し頑張ってみろよ。ダメ諦めたら周りのこと思えよ。応援してる人たちのこと思ってみろって。あともうちょっとのところなんだから。俺だってこのマイナス10度のところしじみが取れるって頑張ってんだよ。絶対やってみろ。必ず目標達成できる。だからこそNever give up.
And with that, we have pretty much come to the end of why 90% of all Umas suck right now, and how you yourself as a player can definitely mitigate a lot of these mistakes I'm saying. Of course, if you're not going to be taking this game very seriously, you're just chilling with the open grade, all the kind of stuff, then don't even worry about it too much. And if this video does not apply to you, feel free to share this with your friends to maybe get them a better quality Uma, because I do feel a little bit unfortunate, because like even in our CM races, you know, when I go up against a lot of these like Umas, I'm like, oh shit, I think a lot of players based in the community are still not probably getting exactly what's going on, which it is what it is, right? So hopefully this video is gonna help. I will also most likely be doing a full run with an example itself, just to help you guys to see a little bit more of my decision making and where I do exactly what I do within the career, eventually how I actually got to the run itself, and just basically the thought process if you guys really want the explanation, right? So that's pretty much it. And I once again want to stress, the next upcoming CM Gemini Cup is a very big stat check for your speed, stamina, as well as to a certain extent power. So this guy will help you indirectly for the Gemini Cup as well, because the next race is a stat check, right? So with that, we have come to the end of today's content. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and any comments you can also provide to the player base and the community. Thank you so much for watching. All the best for your upcoming CM, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.